Okay, so you're into astrophotography, and so you take images of your targets, you stack them, and then after you've stacked all of your subframes, you get a master frame that you need to process. And of course, there are many software that lets you do that. There's like PixInsight, but it's quite expensive. You can use Photoshop, you can use some others. In terms of free software, we have some things like Cyril, which is available for free and has a new version coming soon as well. And recently, on the market, in the free software, free processing software for astrophotography, we have the SETI Astro Suite by SETI Astro, Frank from SETI Astro, who has his own YouTube channel. By the way, I'll put the link down in the description. And today I want to introduce that SETI Astro Suite, and I want to follow one of the workflows that Frank has published on his own channel to process one-shot color images, broadband images for now, using an image of M78 that I've taken from the Starfront observatories in Texas during a recent live stream. I'll put the link to that live stream up above and down in the description if you're interested. This is the result of, I think, 20 frames of 10 minutes each. So it's a bit over 3 hours of data, but from a very, very dark location in the US. And so we'll go through the workflow suggested by Frank, the creator of that free software. And I'll also process the same image in PixInsight, just to show you what we can expect from the free SETI Astro Suite compared to PixInsight. But because the Frank videos can be quite quick and involved, I also will go through the installing of SETI Astro Suite because there's multiple steps if you want to also integrate other tools like Grexpert, StarNet++, Cosmic Clarity, that kind of stuff. And I'll also try to go a bit more slowly than Frank does into each of the steps of this one-shot color workflow. And of course, I'll have all of the links down in the description if you're interested. In terms of the image that we are going to use, as I mentioned, it's M78 and it was taken with a RedCat 61 and an ASI 2600 MC dual camera and a luminance filter, as I recall. Okay, so let's get started first with the installation of SETI Astro Suite and the other tools that can be used with it. Okay, so I am on the website for the SETI Astro Editing Suite, also known as SAS. And to get SETI Astro Suite, you can just click on the Get It Here, and you have a GitHub repository. It gets updated very, very often, which means that likely my video will be out of date in like 6 months. But it is because Frank is so good at building new features into his software. And the last one you can see is like from 15 hours ago. So you just choose the one for your OS. I'll be using Windows in this video. So you just click on that to download the Windows version. You also want to install, as is written here, Cosmic Clarity, which is also created by Frank, and this is a denoising / sharpening AI-powered tool that is available for PixInsight, but also that is available. There's an interface for it in the SETI Astro Suite. So we need to download that. So I need to go to Cosmic Clarity, and we need to download the version that works for us. So yeah, I can go to the folder there. This will open a Google Drive, and you want to get the version for your OS. So for me, it would be this one. So I would go ahead and download it, right? So Cosmic Clarity, and those are the two main ones, but you can actually use other things with SETI Astro. SETI Astro, or more accurately, SETI Astro can make use of other tools as well. You have Grexpert.com, which is Grexpert, that is used to remove backgrounds of the image. SETI Astro Suite has its own native way of doing that, but I kind of like Grexpert, and that's probably what I'll be using in this video. And there it is. So you just want to go to the Grexpert website and download for Windows, at least for me, 64 bits. So, just download and you'll get Grexpert. I've already done it, so I'm going to cancel my download. And another thing that you'll want for this workflow is StarNet, which lets you remove stars from your images and then you can place them back later. So you can process the nebulosity without affecting the stars, which is always nice. So this is on the StarNet page. And again, all of the links down in the description. And for me, I will go and download the command line interface there for Windows. So StarNet v2 CLI for command line interface, win.zip. It's fine to have command line interface because SETI Astro Suite has its own graphical interface that will call the StarNet++ tool. So you just click on that to download it. And then finally, another tool that can be used. I will not be using it in our workflow, but it can be useful to do plate solving of your images, is to use astap. If you are using Nina for your imaging, it's probable that on your imaging laptop or imaging computer, you already have it installed, but often people don't have it installed on their processing machine, but you would want to go ahead and go to this page, download the astap, in my case, Windows program, there it is. And also you want to download a star database for astap to do the plate solving. If you use a long focal length, you will want to use like this D80. For me, I don't really have long focal length images, so I went with D50 to save some space. And I think in a lot of cases it's enough. But Frank recommends, I believe, D80 in his own video about using astap together with SETI Astro Suite. Again, this is not necessary for this particular one-shot color process, but it can be interesting. I'll have the link, by the way, down in the description as well to the raw file that I'll be using for this process, so you can also have a stab at it yourself, because I don't consider it to be my data. I used a remote OBSI, and also I borrowed someone else's equipment for that image. I was just the operator of the imaging software, which was the ESI Air, while doing this capture. So I don't really own that data. I don't see myself as owning the data. Really, it would be Bray Falls, the guy who basically built and manages Starfront OBSIs in Texas, who owns it. I haven't asked his permission before filming this video. I hope it's going to be fine. Bray, don't kill me. And if you're ever interested in Starfront OBSIs, most people, they just send their own rig there. So I didn't want to do that because I need my rigs for my reviews on the channel, etc. I never know when I'll be needing to use one of the pieces of equipment that I have. And yeah, you can just send your rig there and they will install it for you. And then you can just use your own rig. It's your own rig, just at a remote location. And it's honestly a lot of fun. Again, if you want to have a taste of how it would look like, you can check my live stream. Okay, so now we go to where I have all of my downloads there. So what you want to do is just install everything one by one. It's fairly simple. So astap setup, yes. And I'm just going to go ahead and click next to install astap. And I will finish. Then I can install the star database for astap, exactly the same process. And we're done with that. Now I can go to Graxpert, same deal, just like install the program. Remember the path that Graxpert gets installed at. So I'm just going to open a notepad window there and put in the path there, because I'll need to use it later on. So I'm just going to click next and then let it install. Okay, now we're done. And the SETI Astro Suite actually does not need to be installed, so we don't need to run it yet. And for the StarNet stuff, it also does not need to be installed. You just need to have it like in a folder. For me, I've put all of this into their own like SETI Astro Suite downloads folder. So what I can do is just unzip it. I will extract all. I don't even need to show extracted files when complete, and click on extract. Okay, so now with that, we're ready to go. So I will open up the SETI Astro Suite by simply double clicking on the executable file that we downloaded. Windows will tell me that it protected the PC, but I tell it it's fine. I know what I'm doing. And after a few seconds, this should come up. This is the SETI Astro Suite, and that's what we're going to be using to process our images. Now, first things first, I will go to Preferences there, Open Preferences, and you can see you can set your Graxpert path, your StarNet executable path, your astap path, your Cosmic Clarity folder, and your working directory. Which reminds me, I completely forgot about Cosmic Clarity, so I added it to the same folder. Sorry about that. And Cosmic Clarity is basically the same handling as StarNet. I will just right-click, extract all, choose the folder, and let it unzip there. Okay, so now it's unzipped. There it is. We have Cosmic Clarity Suite. And so I should go back to SETI Astro Suite. And as a refresher, we went to Preferences and to Open Preferences. Then you need to set the path for each of those executables manually. So we click on the three dots here, and we're going to find the Graxpert folder where Graxpert is installed. So remember how I copy-pasted that path into Notepad? There was a reason for that. So I can just put it there and enter and then select folder. So that's for Graxpert. Then we have the StarNet executable path, which is going to be for removing stars. And so I can just navigate to the StarNet folder that we just unzipped together and go all the way in and select starnet++.exec. There we go. Same for ASTAP. ASTAP would typically be under program files. So you can see program files, ASTAP, and then you can just select astap.exec. And then Cosmic Clarity, it's again the folder that we just unzipped together. So I can just go to Cosmic Clarity Suite there, and that is the main folder there. So I'm just going to select. There we go. And finally, the working directory is where the SETI Astro Suite will save any temporary files that it has to generate to do processing. So we'll just select, maybe what I can do is actually go to the folder where I have everything downloaded, and I'm just going to create a new folder in there called temp. And that's where I will put my working directory for SETI Astro Suite. So there it is. I will just select temp there and select folder. And there we have all of this stuff put in. If you want to, you can put some other information in there, like if you have astrometry API key and you want to use astrometry.net for plate solving, you can use that. But most of the time, ASTAP would be just fine. So now I can just click on save, and we're done with those initial preference setting. Now, before I go a bit further in there, I want to give you an idea of the interface. You have a series of tools there at the top with undo and redo the last action that can be very useful, but they are not as good as what you have in PixInsight. As far as I know, there's no like image history, what's happened like in multiple steps to your image. And also when you do an undo or redo, sometimes it's not very clear exactly what you're undoing. Sometimes I made mismanipulations and I just like completely undid curves that I had done, and then there was no way to redo them. So there's still some weird funky stuff happening there. But otherwise you have operations like looking at the histogram, cropping the image, removing gradients via the internal native gradient removal tool to the SETI Astro Suite, or via Graxpert. You can remove stars using StarNet, place them back, remove the green, so this is the same as the SCNR feature in PixInsight. You can neutralize the background, you can change the white balance, you can extract the luminance, recombine luminance, do RGB combination or extraction. So all of that is very familiar for people who have like access to PixInsight already. You have also a blemish blaster that lets you basically use, it's kind of a clone stamp tool in Photoshop. If you have a blemish in your image that you want to remove, you can use the blemish blaster and it will replace it by the average of the surrounding pixels, that kind of stuff. And then we also have like HDR multi-scale transform. So if you have like an image like the Orion Nebula that has very bright areas and very dark areas, and you want to kind of like put them at the same level so we can see everything at once, that's the tool you'd be using. We have some local histogram equalization. And we also have like a pixel math utility that we will be using actually. And there's some mask stuff as well, like applying a mask, removing a mask, etc. We'll be using some of those as well. We also have a further list of tools in there, kind of as tabs that more or less make it into a workflow where you have like XISF Liberator. This is to read XISF files generated by the PixInsight stacking tool, for instance. Where you can compare frames before stacking, and that's actually very useful because it's much faster than the PixInsight tool that does the same thing. So I really like that. It's actually valuable even if you have PixInsight, in my opinion. You have Cosmic Clarity Sharpen / Denoise, and this is AI-based denoising and sharpening for the tool. So I'm going to click on the wrench there and make sure that we select the Cosmic Clarity folder once again while I'm at it. I'm not sure why we need to select here as well as in the main preferences, but it is what it is right now. And we also have like a satellite trail removal provided by Cosmic Clarity. We have a statistical stretch to stretch the image from a linear state to a stretched state. We have a curves utility to apply curves to the image. Palette picker is more like for narrowband imaging. Same narrowband stuff. You can stretch stars if you remove stars prior to stretching and you want to recombine them after stretching. And also some cool stuff like frequency separation, which can be useful to do advanced kind of noise reduction depending on the noise pattern that you see. There's also a tool to remove halos on stars. I haven't used it yet, but it's there. And also this continuum subtraction tool can be used when you want to do galaxy processing and you want to combine a luminance, a broadband galaxy image with like separately taken narrowband data of that galaxy. So lots of very cool tools in there. And also something that's important to be aware of with this tool is on the left-hand side, you have those slots. And those slots basically allow you, it's a bit like layers in Photoshop, kind of like a bit, where you can load an image into each slot. You can say like, I'm going to load an image in slot 0, in slot 1, in slot 2, in slot 3. And then later on, you can say like, yeah, I'll combine slot 0 image with slot 2 image. Right? And you can copy, you can use this little tool there, the copy slot, to copy whatever is in image 0 to slot 1. So it's kind of like an image memory there as to what slot contains what image. And we have something similar. You have slots for masks. If you can create multiple masks at once, and you can say like, I'll apply mask from slot 1, from slot 2, etc., etc. So it's a very interesting way of representing the images that you have loaded. That is the overall interface of the tool. So with that out of the way, let's get into processing. Oh, by the way, before we go to that next step, don't forget making those videos is a lot of work. And if you want to help me, you can just go ahead and like this video. It really helps the channel out and it takes 1 second. You can also leave a comment down below. What do you think of SETI Astro Suite? Have you tried it? Will you try it? It's really amazing. And please check out Frank's channel. And if you want to support me even more at no cost to you and you're planning on buying anything from Amazon, Agena, High Point Scientific, First Light Optics, etc., if you do so after clicking one of the links I have in the description, it will help me out at no cost to you. And of course, this video is sponsored by my Patreon supporters and by my channel members who support the whole channel. If you too want to support my work, you can join my Patreon as a member. The link is down in the description. Some of my Patreon ranks get access to my videos early and without ads. And you can also join as a channel member on YouTube. This is the join button next to the subscribe button. And my channel members, my Patreon supporters, you make all of this possible. Thank you so much for your support. With that, let's keep going on to the processing. So I'll click here to open the image that I want to process. And for me, it's from the Starfront OBSEs. And under Master, this is the image that I will be processing of M78. After a moment, it gets loaded into the software. I'm going to tell it to fit to the window, so we have the view of the whole image at once. And just because the image is in a linear stage, we don't see anything without doing some sort of visual stretch. So I'm going to toggle the auto stretch to see what we are doing. So now, by the way, just FYI, and I'll put the link to that video up above and down in the description. This is the video whose workflow I will be following religiously because, again, SETI Astro Suite is a new tool. It's very new to me, definitely. And so, yeah, I will follow this tutorial. I'll be slightly slower than Frank is, I think, to explain a bit what's going on, what exactly we are doing. So with this is an unlinked auto stretch, by the way. So that means that if there's some weird like gradient in the image, as there usually is, especially if you're in a light polluted area, but even from a very dark area, usually you will have like a green, yellow, red tint to the image. We actually can double check that by going to statistical stretch here. We can unlink link stretch. No, we can keep link stretched actually on there. This will basically stretch all of the color channels in the exact same way, so we can look at how the image looks like natively in a way. So I'm going to just preview the stretch, and this is how it looks like, right? So we have a gradient that we will need to get rid of at some point. So let me undo that. We're back to a linear image. And what Frank suggests doing is basically first removing what is called the pedestal of the image, which is basically when you open up the histogram here, using this histogram tool, you can see that the minimum value for red, green, and blue seem to be around 0.01, 0.012, 0.007. It's actually not that bad, but it is a pedestal to the image. And to kind of sanitize the image, we can remove that and have everything go to the minimum being 0. And for that, we can use the pixel mask tool that is available. So for that, I can just go ahead, click on this little pixel mask thing. And what we're going to do is that for each of the channels, we are going to say that we're going to take slot 0, and we're going to do slot 0 minus the minimum of slot 0. So what we're saying is that take the image that is in slot 0. So remember how I mentioned slots earlier. This image was loaded into slot 0, and remove from it the darkest value that you can find in the image for each channel. So that basically it's not going to change anything from our point of view. I'm just going to click on OK. It will apply that, and it's done. Okay, we're done. It didn't change much for us, but it's apparently a nice thing to do at first to kind of get rid of that pedestal that we have into the image. I actually think it can help with the statistical stretch later down the road. So that could be something that is good for statistical stretch. We can double check that this did something by opening up the histogram tool again, and now you'll see that the minimum value for every channel is now 0, right, as expected. It did not clip any data, it just removed that useless pedestal that we have on the data. So next step, we saw that there's a bit of a gradient in the image. So we have two ways that we could remove that gradient. We can use the native tool, or we can use Graxpert. And I like both actually, but I'm going to use Graxpert. I would just recommend that the smoothing should not be the default. Unless you have a reason to do so, I would keep the smoothing amount to 1, which basically makes Graxpert remove the least amount of nebulosity details that it possibly can. So I like to do that, and what it will do is we'll actually invoke the Graxpert tool that we installed together, and I'm just going to click OK and let it do its job. Okay, and there it is. The gradient was removed successfully. And actually, we can double check that if I go back to the statistical stretch tab here, and I do a linked stretch again with previewing the stretch. We see that we no longer have that weird greenish gradient that we used to have. I'm gonna still go back to linear. I don't want to apply a stretch yet. So now what I can do is I can use the Cosmic Clarity Sharpen / Denoise tool there. Remember, we've already set up the executable, both actually in the preferences and in this wrench icon here. And I'm gonna set auto stretch to on, just that we can see what we're doing. And I'm going to do fit to preview so we can see the overall image. And what we can do is we will both sharpen and denoise the image at the same time. So I'll set both. And then you have some options that are available. You could treat each RGB channel, so red, green, and blue channels separately. You can say that you want to sharpen the stars a lot. You want to have like a high amount of the noise strength, for instance. There's a lot of parameters that you can change, and really what you'd want to do ideally is just to like zoom into the image and look at like the noise pattern that you see in the image. For me, it is only like 3 hours of data, right? So even from a very dark zone, because this is a dark nebula, it is fairly noisy. So what I'll do is maybe like a denoise strength of 0.7 and see what happens, right? So I also can choose the denoise mode, whether I want it to denoise only like the black and white information, like the levels of brightness of the image, or whether I want it to also deal with the color kind of information of the image. And I want it to do both, so I will select full here. And for the rest, I will leave the default settings, and we're gonna click on execute and see what we get. Okay. And the tool is done. It took quite a bit of time, so let it do its job. Also, if you have an NVIDIA, I don't know, maybe other GPUs, make sure you have use GPU acceleration. But you can see this is actually a very good result. We can see the stars are sharper, and everything seems to be a bit sharper. So we can undo. So this is the before the tool was run, and then redo, and this is after, right? So we see there's a huge improvement in terms of noise, and I think to some extent detail. This is actually pretty good as a result already. Okay, now our image is basically ready to stretch everything. So what we'll do, again, I'm following the steps outlined by Frank. I will be removing the stars using StarNet++. So I'll click on Remove Stars, and the first time you run it, it will ask you to select the executable where StarNet is, which I don't know why we have to do that because we've already set it up in the overall preferences, but we have to do this, and so I will select that. Now, something important to know, because I spent 1 hour trying to figure out what the heck was happening. Once you have selected this folder, you cannot change it afterwards. So if you ever move StarNet++, well, you have a workaround, which is to reset all of the preferences, close SETI Astro, reopen it, and then you can reset this. But otherwise, there is no way, as far as I can tell, to manually reset just this thing here. So it would be nice for StarNet++ to also have this kind of wrench icon, so we can reset the folder where it's installed. Because to make this video, I actually moved folders around, and then I was like hitting my head against the wall for an hour trying to figure out how to make things work again. So now it should be working. We select the executable. Just make sure that once you've selected it, you never move StarNet++ ever again. And I'm going to click on OK. We've set the executable. I will say that the current image is indeed linear. Yes, because we haven't stretched it yet. And it will say stretching the image for StarNet processing, which might feel like you just need to wait. No, you actually need to click that OK button. I found myself the first time waiting 5 minutes on this screen because I didn't realize it wasn't actually doing anything. I had to click on OK first. There we go. So now it's working, and StarNet is doing its magic to remove the stars. Okay, and StarNet seems to be done. So now we actually need to save that file from StarNet++. So what will I do? I'll probably put it in SAS downloads temp, and then call it like stars removed M78. Instead of having to save the file like that, it would be nice if we could just load it into one of the slots directly. And once it's done, it will load the starless image here again into slot 0 there. So if we wanted to keep the star full image first, we would have need to leave it in slot 1, for instance. I will not reuse the star full image, but just FYI, we could have basically said like, okay, before applying StarNet, we could use this little copy thing to say like, yeah, we're going to copy the image that's in slot 0. We'll copy it to slot 1, say OK. And now in slot 1, and now I will reapply StarNet in slot 0. So there it is, we've removed the stars in slot 0, but in slot 1, if I go there, I still have my image with all of the stars. That's kind of like the fun thing with those slots there. And by the way, if I go into slots, I can rename slot, and I can say that slot number 0, I can press OK, I can call it something like main. Boop, and you can see now it's called main. And again, under slots, I could say rename slot and say that slot number 1 will be renamed to starful. Whatever, that's fine, right? So now I know exactly what I'm doing, what is in each slot, etc. So yeah, we have the starless image. Some of the stars were not removed. That's fine. So anyway, now that we have our starless image, we can finally stretch it. So I can go ahead into the statistical stretched tool, and now we'll do a linked stretch. I'll keep the default settings. If you feel like the stretch is too aggressive, you could change the target median to something else. For now, I'll just keep it to this, and I will click on preview stretch. And what's interesting is, and I don't know if I'm doing something weird or I'm not thinking things through correctly, is that this preview stretch actually seems to just apply the stretch to the image. So I'm not sure whether it should be a preview stretch name, but you know, it is what it is. It seems to be working as is. So now we have stretched the image, and because we have stretched the image, we could also now try to kind of fix those like the traces where the stars have been left over in the image, or like the halos there around the stars. I could go ahead and use Blemish Blaster here and say like, okay, where do I see a nice blemish? Here. Here's a nice blemish. I could say that I want the correction radius to be a bit larger than the blemish itself. Something like that. That's a bit too large. Something like that, and then click on that. And bam, like we've kind of removed that blemish. But I'm gonna undo because it's a lot of work. I don't feel like it. But if you really want it to be like precise, you would, remove all of those little halos that are remaining from the StarNet++ stuff. But yeah, I'm too lazy for that. Now, the next thing that Frank recommends doing is to do a background neutralization, which is interesting to me because in PixInsight, I'm used to doing background neutralization before we stretch the image. And also, it's probably not necessary in our case because Graxpert, as far as I understand it, does a background neutralization already. But, let's do it just so that we know exactly how it works. For that, it's this little icon there, like this icon. I will click on it, and I need to select an area of background that is representative of background. So maybe I can select, I can drag and drop. Here, we've selected this little red square here, and I click on Apply Neutralization, and now it's done. So you'll see that it's changed a tiny bit. It's used the color that it found there, and it's subtracted kind of that color to the entire image. I kind of feel like I want to, also before doing the stretching and before removing the stars, I would want to actually open up the image in Cyril, do a photometric color calibration, and then import it back in SETI Astro. That might actually be even better, but for now I'll stick to just this piece of software because it's complicated enough as it is. Okay, now that we are here, if I zoom into the image, you can see that the areas there are quite bright actually at the center of M78. And so if we want to reveal some more details in there, we can use the HDR tool there. So that's the equivalent in PixInsight to the HDR multi-scale transform. And in there, I'll leave all of those defaults. I'll find the nebula itself. Here we go. And with the default settings, for now, I'm just going to click on Preview, see what happens. Okay, that's actually quite nice. We can see a bit more what's happening in this nebula. Let's try with a slightly smaller number of scales, do a preview, see if we see something a bit different. Yeah, actually, I prefer that. We get back more of those details that have been drowned out into the bright parts of the nebula. So that's probably what I'm going to use. So I'm going to click on Apply here. And there we go. We have the HDR multi-scale transform that's been applied to our image. Okay, so now we are kind of ready to do some curves. So we're going to go to Curves utility, and we can do kind of a brightness curve to do contrast adjustments. And to add points of the curves, apparently you need to double click there. So now we're double clicking to add points, and I can say like, okay, the very dark background I want to like pull down there, and I can adjust it so that I have some contrast in the image, and I can choose how much contrast I want at each level of brightness. This is exactly like the curves in PixInsight. So I kind of like what I see here, although I would love to have like a preview on-off kind of button. Maybe there is one and I'm missing it, but I want to see like what was the image before the curves and after the curves before I actually apply the curve to the image. But I'm just going to apply the curve. So here we go. The curve is now applied onto the image. And what I can do next is actually also part of the workflow that Frank has in his tutorial, which is you can see like in the background there's a lot of green image, which is not something that you would get in broadband images of targets, including M78. So we can use the green removal tool that's somewhere in here. There it is. It is this little button there, Remove Green. So I'm going to click on that. Just click on Apply. And there, like all of that green in the image is now gone. We have something a bit more looking like what I want to see. I could play a little bit with the curves like that. To further enhance the contrast that we get, and I'm just going to apply the curve once again, just because now I really like all of the nebulosity that we're getting out. And now what we could do is actually play with some masks, or I could just like try directly on this image, to adjust the chroma of the of the image, like to get a bit more like of a punchy image. But I'm not gonna do that. I'm going to right-click to remove those points. I could try to play with the saturation to see what we would get. I actually kind of like that. The whole saturation onto the image like that. So I'm just going to apply these curves. But we could also add masks, and that's one of the really cool. Is my curve applied? Yes, now it is. I could add masks. That's one of the really cool features that we have. So we can go into masks, create a mask, and I can say that I want to add a lightness mask. And we can tell SETI Astro that we want to blur that mask by a certain amount. I can select the entire image, click preview mask, and then we can see how our lightness mask would look like. And I can save that mask, and I can save to a mask slot and say that it's going to be slot number 0. And that's our lightness mask. And I could also have like a second mask that could be a chrominance mask for like which amount of the image has the most color effectively. And I can, again, blur that mask, preview the mask, and that looks good to me. Actually, I probably want to blur it more. Preview the mask, and that looks good. So I'm going to save the mask into a slot again, and this is going to be the mask slot 1. And then something that if we wanted to like apply some saturation only to the red color, for instance, we could go ahead and create a color mask for the color red. That could be very useful in things like narrowband processing as well. I'm going to blur it quite a bit, and I'm going to preview the mask, and that gives me like a blurred mask image that tells us where the color red is. So I'm going to save that as the mask slot number 2. Right, so I'm going to say OK, and now we have multiple masks created. This is exactly what Frank does in his video, and I could say like going back to mask slots, and I can rename a mask slot and say number 0, sorry, is lightness. Okay, and now I can again go to mask slots, rename mask slots. Number 1 is going to be chroma, and number 3 again. Number 2, sorry, is going to, and number 2 mask is going to be what? It's going to be red. Pop. There you go. So now we have 3 masks, and I can load like the lightness mask and have it applied to the image, or I can apply the chroma, or I can apply the red. I'm going to try to apply the red mask and select chroma there, and then see what happens if I increase the chroma of just like the red parts of the image. So it's kind of nice. Or I could try saturation instead. No, chroma is better. There it is. So I can play on each of the colors independently. And I could also, let's say, apply the chroma mask. So the chroma mask is applied, and again, I'm going to try to add some chroma to that. See what happens. So it does like kind of give some punchiness to the image. So I'm going to apply that curve. And what we could also do as well is go to mask, and we're going to go to mask slot number 0, which is lightness, and say that we want to invert the mask. I'm going to say yes, the mask has been inverted, so I can apply that mask from slot 0. And now I could say, like using this brightness curve, I could drag the curve a little bit down to kind of affect the background more than the main image, just to increase the contrast a tiny little bit. So that's what it would give us, and I can apply the curve. So you can see we can play with the masks and the curves together. It's a bit unwieldy, but it works, and that's really pretty amazing. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to combine the stars again. Now the stars that we extracted were linear from a linear image effectively. So we need to stretch the stars. So we'll need to use this star stretch tool that we have at the top. Let me make sure that I do not have any mask applied. How do I unapply? So to unapply the mask, I will click on that, which does not actually delete the mask, it just removes the mask from the current image. So that can be a little bit confusing, but what I want to do next is to place back the stars. Before placing back the stars, I will need to stretch them. So I will need to open the star image that we saved earlier, which means that once we open it, it's going to be on slot 0. Slot 0 will replace whatever we have. We don't want that, so I am going to use the copy feature to say that what we have in slot 0, so which is called main, will be copied to slot number 2 there. And I'm going to say OK. And I will rename that image in slot number 2. It's going to be renamed to what? To starless processed. Pop. There we go. So now we have the starless processed image in slot number 2, and I'm free to open the stars image that we create so much earlier in the video. And actually, I had named it stars removed M78, but it's actually stars of M78. The stars removed was actually loaded into the image. So now that I have loaded the stars, I can go into star stretch, and I'm probably going to just leave everything as is and refresh the preview, and those are the stars, and they look kind of nice. There's a little bit of teal color again, like kind of green color, so I can undo this and remove the green and try again. Okay, I kind of like that. So now we have a stars image with the stars themselves that are stretched, so we can go ahead and recombine everything together. So now that we have our stars, I'm just going to copy them into slot number 3. Like when in doubt, copy into a new slot, basically, so make sure you don't lose some of your work. So now it's copied to slot number 3. I will go ahead and rename the slot number 3 to stars stretched. Pop. There we go. So now that we have that, we can place back the stars into the image. In Franklin's own video, he suggests using a lightness mask so that you'll add back the stars more into the bright areas of the image compared to the dark areas of the image. I'm not sure I'm a big fan of that. It feels like I'm cheating, even though we're doing a lot of cheating, but I don't know. That's where I place my boundary, which is silly, but it is what it is. And I'm going to just click on that little add the stars back into the image. And we're going to say that the blend type is a screen blend, and the starless image is going to be this number 2 slot called starless processed, and the stars only image is going to be stars stretched. And I am going to just apply with the default options. Okay, and here we go with the image in slot 0 that has all of those stars back. And it looks like a really nice image, to be honest. Now, what I do notice is that if I zoom in, the image looks quite noisy again, and it looks like chrominance noise. So I think while I was doing the chroma curves, I added back some noise. So maybe I can try like cosmic clarity again. And so I'm back into cosmic clarity, and I'm going to try to execute cosmic clarity, no sharpen, just denoise. And I'm going to do a full denoise, and yes, strength again of maybe 0.7, and execute, just to see if we get something better. I can undo if I wish. Okay, and we have Cosmic Clarity has run on the image for denoise again, and the result is actually really nice. I like what I'm seeing. This is pretty much, I would say, our final image with SETI Astro Suite, and I think it's a pretty good image. I do remember Franklin doing like a white balance of the image, so using that little white balance tool, which seems to be a photometric color calibration. I'm not sure exactly what this is. It says that it's going to use the stars, so I'm just going to apply that to the image and see how this affects it. So this is the before, where the image is quite warm in terms of color, and after, where it looks a bit colder in terms of colors. So again, I would be used in PixInsight to doing like spectrophotometric color calibration before stretching, but I like what I see there. This is a really nice process of this image. It's a beautiful image, again obtained with equipment at Starfront Obsies, and I'm going to go ahead and save as this image. So for that, I will say that I will save it as a TIFF file, so we have all of the information. So I will call it like M78 processed.tiff and save. It will ask me the bit depth. I will take 32-bit floating point, so I have all of the information from the image, and I will also save as again and save it as a JPEG or a PNG, so that we have M78 processed.png, and we can keep it as a PNG file. And there we go, it's saved. So let me show you quickly how this all looked like in PixInsight with the same image. So here we are in PixInsight. This is the initial image. Let me do an auto stretch. So that's what we started with again. And in PixInsight, I do the usual stuff. First, Graxpert to remove the background gradient. So that gives us this. All right, this is very similar to what we had. Then Blur Exterminator to get more details and sharpen the stars in the image. Then Noise Exterminator, the new version of Noise Exterminator, looks like it's working really, really well to remove the noise in the image. Then I also did some spectrophotometric color calibration, by the way. And then I can stretch the image. I can remove the stars. I can do some HDR multi-scale transform. So this is like on this core, the before and after. And I can keep going. So SCNR to remove a lot of that greenish color. Then some curves and curves and more curves and curves and curves, playing with the colors basically quite a lot there. And that's at the end after all of the curves have been done. And then I noticed that I had quite a bit of noise back, so I actually ran Noise Exterminator again, just like we did with Cosmic Clarity in SETI Astro Suite, and this is what we're getting. So that is the result of the starless image. So now I could play and add back the stars, and for removing the stars I used Star Exterminator rather than StarNet. And this is the image that we get once we add back the stars. I'm not quite finished because I wanted to make the stars smaller, so I used the star reduce script, something like that. So under utilities, star reduction, there it is, star reduction script. And the stars are much smaller, less noticeable now. And then did some curves a little bit more. And that's basically my final image from PixInsight. So now let's compare both of those images one by one that I got from SETI Astro Suite, completely free, and from PixInsight, which is €300, plus Blur Exterminator, Noise Exterminator, and Star Exterminator, which together are something like $200, a bit more. Yeah, free software compared to $500-600. Let's see the difference between the two. Okay, so here we go. This is the SETI Astro processed version, free. Everything is free, and this is processed with PixInsight. PixInsight, SETI Astro, PixInsight. It's very interesting to see that I've ended up processing quite differently. I think the colors overall in PixInsight are cooler than the warmer colors in SETI Astro. The PixInsight image definitely has more contrast. I managed to get more contrast more easily than the SETI Astro image. Like if you see, look at those like kind of brownish nebulosity, if you look at them in PixInsight, suddenly they're much more visible and contrasty compared to the image that I got from SETI Astro. But still, this is a banging image in SETI Astro. I do prefer, and maybe it's simply because I'm more used to PixInsight, I do prefer the image that I get in PixInsight, but I really like what I see in SETI Astro as well. And if we look into the details of M78, this is what we get from PixInsight. I like this beautiful blue color that I was able to get together with all of those super crazy details. I would love to actually crop on this and just zoom on this. This is beautiful. And this is the same with the SETI Astro Suite. And I think that it does show really at this stage how I think PixInsight is still quite a bit better. Is it infinitely better since it costs infinitely more money? No, but it's still like, I think PixInsight is still quite superior. And this is like both processed to the best of my ability in both software. That said, I'm much more used to PixInsight, and SETI Astro Suite is in its infancy and it keeps being updated all the freaking time. So anyway, let me know in the comments which image you prefer. I'll be very interested in seeing what you actually prefer in terms of end processing. And while you're at it, please like the video. It really helps the channel out. And if you want to help out the channel at no cost to you and you're planning on buying anything from Amazon, Agena Astro, High Point Scientific, First Light Optics, etc., if you do so after clicking the links that I have down in the description, it helps me out, again, at no cost to you. And if you want to help sponsor the channel, because this video was sponsored by my channel members and Patreon supporters, If, like them, you want to support this channel directly, you can join my Patreon as a member. The link is down in the description, or you can join as a YouTube channel member. It's the join button next to the subscribe button. You guys, you know it. You make this channel possible. I'll have the list of the credits with you guys at the end of the video while we zoom into this M78 image, because you guys are rock stars. Thank you so much for making this channel possible. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know down in the comments. Have fun testing out SETI Astro Suite. I hope this was a useful video. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, whenever you can, to look up at the stars, and I'll see you next time.